This staircase behind me is part of a 1,000 square foot house leading to the second floor. Now this actually used to be carpet, which carpet really out, way more like the 80s or 90s. Well, today I'm going to show you one method to do an easy stair renovation that can save you thousands compared to hiring a professional. There is no doubt this is an advanced DIY project. The stairs behind me are made from solid bamboo flooring, 1/2 inch with inch treads on the front. I custom glued these, routed them out, cut everything to fit. This is all new product, including the risers that are painted white and the hardwood tops in bamboo. If you're joining me for the first video, this channel is Andrew Built, and I show you everything from DIY to business to new home construction. To start out, let me give you a couple details about what was here before. Now behind me here, we had 2x10 pine stairs. So these were just covered in a dirty, old, nasty carpet. That had to go, and what we discovered is that these stairs were not properly built. Underneath this carpet, after removing all the staples and nails, the 2x10s were only supported on each side. This is far too far for a stair. This resulted in a lot of movement and a ton of squeaking. Walking up the staircase was like waking up everyone in the house. It was crazy. So let's get right into it. As we go along, I'm going to tell you a little more about the costs, but I can tell you to get this job done professionally, it would have cost me at least $2,000 to $2,500, including labor and materials. And sneak peek, I did this all for less than $500.
Now the first thing to know is that I am far from a professional craftsman. And whenever you're doing a project, safety should be your #1 priority. This being said, there's tons of regulations that are going to be specific to each tool and what locals recommend for how to use them. For example, a lot of craftsmen say never use gloves with most power tools. This is because gloves could get caught in a blade and cause additional hand injury. A good rule of thumb is to always consult the manuals that come with your machine, use the guides as much as possible, and get advice from other people that have used the equipment before. To gain some efficiency on this project, the first thing I did was cut out all my base pieces. Now these are the risers and the base of the treads. Here I'm using a standard 1/4 inch piece of plywood to cut out the risers. Now these don't need to be very precise because they'll be covered up on the top and bottom. I wish I could describe how painful it was to get all these big 4-inch spiral nails out. The biggest thing is to invest in a good set of tools to remove nails. Just a standard pry bar doesn't always work well. Getting some specialty tools that can pull them out without hurting yourself is a very wise investment. An alternative method here, instead of removing the existing stair tread, is to cut it flush. Now that only works when you have a solid base, where I did not have a solid base because there was no center stringer. The other reason I opted for a full removal is because these were terribly unlevel stairs, and the only way to level these out is going to be shims and a ton of PL Premium. When using a high-grade adhesive, you typically need very few fasteners in stairs. Reducing the fasteners is also going to reduce the chance of squeaking when everything dries up and shrinks. This shot is great because it shows the 2x3 that I beveled out and went across the base of the stair to provide additional support so I didn't get movement in the future. This was glued and screwed onto a piece of wood that was securely fastened to the stair stringer. After a bunch of custom work, I've got all my stair base treads in, which is 2 pieces of 3/4 inch press board glued together.
At this point in our project, I went ahead and cut all our risers custom height and custom length for each step. What I did is measure, so I marked the bottom with each number. And since I marked them with each number, when I go ahead and put them upstairs back in place, everything's going to fit perfectly and I don't have to worry about paints besides a little touch up later. Painting this, I'm using a nice satin trim and door paint. This is going to hold up well, dries fast, and make my job easy. Very high quality paint from Behr. I'd recommend it. And what I did is add just a little bit of tinge because pure white paint doesn't cover quite as well. And since we're going over wood grain here, I want this to cover really nicely.
Now, when you're painting, I always recommend going with the premium painting product, either a Sherwin-Williams or a premium Home Depot brand. The reason I do this is because my time is valuable and I don't need to spend time doing additional coats and repairing later when I can just use a high quality paint that's going to cost me maybe 10 or 20% more. And we're right back at it, using the PL Premium to glue on these fascia boards. Now, you don't need a ton of this stuff, but I had plenty and I did not want to have any chance of squeaking. So I went ahead and did plenty of glue, especially because the nails that I used were just little staple nails and not necessarily structural. Because our house is a renovated house from the 1950s, these stairs are extremely steep. So what I opted to do is create an angle of about 5% on the riser. This gives your foot a little more room without sacrificing the overhang on the stair tread. I love how it turned out. I'd highly recommend this as long as it doesn't interfere with any codes in your jurisdiction. Now I should mention that the way that I did these stairs, all the fasteners will be hidden, so I'm not worried about how these are going to look exactly because I don't need to cover them up.
The product used on these stairs is Hardwood from the big box store Home Depot. It's made of solid bamboo composite, so no layers. That means this can be refinished multiple times, and I think they give you like a 40-year warranty on this. Best part, it was only $2 a square foot.
Now, making these stair treads could be a video all by itself. I took a lot of time to try to find a pre-finished material that was affordable and high quality for the stair color that would match my floors. I found nothing, so what I did is doubled up with a strip of hardwood underneath an existing piece. I then glued this together with a Gorilla wood glue and routed the edges to make a nice round stair tread. This allowed me to make a great stair tread that can be refinished just like the rest of the stairs. Now, the order I did this installation in was very important. All the risers have to be in before you can install the treads, because the treads butt up to the risers on the top and bottom side. Now, here's an idea that's going to save you a ton of pain and suffering. Go online and get yourself a quality set of stair tread gauges. Now, these are typically metal devices that strap onto a piece of wood. In this instance, I went ahead and just built my own out of a couple pieces of 1/4-inch Luan. I cut out some shapes and used these so that I could set it in place and measure, and then take this directly into the shop to cut out the stair tread. The reason this is so helpful compared to just measuring with a tape measure is that there's a ton of different angles you have to get right when you get the stair tread in. Now, one thing I'd love to know is what tools work good for the viewers here. Definitely leave a comment down below if you have any suggestions on good tools to use for this type of woodworking. Because this bamboo is such an incredibly hard wood, I would use nothing less than a medium tooth blade. And then get yourself some kind of jig, either a radial arm saw or a track saw like I'm using here. That's going to ensure you get a straight and clean cut with minimal chip pull out. After all the prep work, this was an incredibly satisfying part of the project. Putting in the tread is pretty straightforward. I recommend using plenty of glue, But with a glue like PL Premium, which actually expands and has tiny air bubbles in it after curing, you're going to want to leave a little bit of a room around the edge because you may get some push out by the glue as it expands. Putting these treads in is pretty straightforward because we use the stair gauge. You can see that we got a really good tight fit, which is going to minimize any gapping that we'd have to caulk or cover up with trim later. Now I may end up doing a trim on the edge of the stair, but I think it just gives me some options and I was able to finish this project up a little quicker. Here's showing the process one more time of using that stair gauge. You basically set the size, lock it in place, and then you can cut easily and precisely without having to take any measurements. If you want to see more detail about this process, leave a comment down below and I might make another video on how this is done and how I created my stair gauge for this project. An alternative glue here is just a basic flooring glue that's designed for a hardwood floor like bamboo. This is actually very incredibly similar. It expands as it dries, filling in all sorts of voids and creating a really strong bond. The reason I use this is because I had a leftover can that was open, a 5-gallon drum, and you can't store this stuff long because it does cure with moisture and will cure even when fully sealed. Because I'm doing no fasteners on top here because the glue is so strong, I just used some simple weights or paint cans to keep everything in place while the glue cured. The only part of the staircase that's different than all the normal treads is the very top and the bottom tread on the staircase. For the bottom tread, I went ahead and cut out a return. This is going to wrap around to provide a return that goes into the wall. Now at this point, this last tread basically finished up the project for me for quite a while. I was happy for the moment with how the results came. And after weighting this down, you can see all the fasteners were hidden, and overall with a little paint, it would have turned out pretty nice. Now after living with this for a little bit, we ended up removing the handrail and then started to think about what could be a semi-permanent solution before we do all the final little trim work on this project. What I came up with is a nice piece of oak. I cut this down on the table saw, cut a groove, and inserted a piece of custom-made trim. Now I spent way too much time sanding and finishing this, so I could finally throw it on temporarily until we find a permanent solution like a view rail handrail.
In this project, I used 60 square feet of material, which accounts for all the offcuts. So we're talking a couple $100 of material. The bill for the hardwood composite came to $186. Now this was part of a larger purchase because I did the entire upstairs portion of the home in this same bamboo hardwood, and we've had it for over a year. It's incredibly strong and 0 scratches so far. Now I was really lucky to purchase the material for this project before lumber prices went through the roof. The 2 sheets of 3/8" plywood that I used for the backer came to $62, and then I used 2 sheets of 3/4 inch for the underlayment that I screwed together and glued together, and that came to $84. As you know, lumber prices are all over the board. I think they've come down about 60% since the peak, so these prices are just my example, and they could vary widely from what you see. The final material expenses that I had were the white paint and then some hardware. So in total, we had about $70 of extra parts and pieces that we had to buy to make this project happen. So with the bulk of the material on this project coming to $402, including the little bits of extra here and there, I can confidently say that I did this project for under $450. Again, I got 2 quotes for this project, one for $2,100 and one for $2,600. So I think I did a great job, and luckily the time that I spent I had back, when there was nothing going on during this shutdown. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. I would recommend anyone goes ahead with a project like this if they feel that they have the skills and of course time to make it happen without getting frustrated. Thanks again for joining. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more fantastic content. Leave a question down in the comments because I love to hear what you want to see on future videos and what you think I did well in this video and why I should do better on the next one.